I'm interested in is sort of how the lean methodology applies to food entrepreneurship, because in some cases it does, and in some cases it doesn't. So maybe we could kind of open that topic up a little bit. Steve was talking about that today when we innovate in an iterative, sort of non-serial manner, and that he gave birth to this notion of the pivot. And I've seen some pivots go terribly wrong in food once things are set. But maybe each just think a little bit about that and talk about where you're where you're iterating and where you're finding that with food, because of the complexity of personal taste, because of food safety, because of sourcing and systematic kind of needs of supply, that food is kind of a distinct discipline in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship. And whoever wants to go first can jump in.
Well, I was saying earlier when we were talking about this that we have two different parts of our business at this point, where one is our K-12 school meals business, and then the other is a consumer packaged goods retail product line. And one of the things that has been just totally intrinsic to our K-12 business has been iteration. And, we work really closely with kids to make sure to do taste tests and, every step along the way from, a new idea. Like when we started serving San Francisco Unified School District, we had kids saying, we coming from Asian American populations that were accustomed to eating rice bowls for breakfast. And we had never developed a rice bowl for breakfast. We had a great egg sandwich, and we had great cereals and muffins and bagels, and they were like, this is not what what we want on the menu. So, from that idea to then, developing a whole suite of different options and getting kids to taste them, and then having kids name them, and, so that when they appeared on the menu, the kids felt ownership over, oh my gosh, so we now have the Sunshine Breakfast Rice Bowl that was named by kids. That's a really popular item on our menu in San Francisco. And so that process of iteration, and then when we'll do things like that, we'll take them to other parts of the country, and then we might have to iterate again based on regional flavors and palates and that sort of thing. But what's been important for us is sort of we have very strict. We've talked a little bit about the compliance environment that we work in, and working in schools, and obviously food safety and everything. So we have this very strict sort of sandbox that we have to play in, very strict guidelines that we have to meet. But then within that, there's a ton of iteration based on feedback, and it can even be day to day. We can launch a new menu item and kids say it was too spicy, so the next time we do it, we'll launch it with a different different iteration. So there's a lot of iteration. I think on the other side of our business, our retail business, we've learned a lot. I mean, Will was one of the people that first said, when you're a retail product, you have one shot. You have a customer walking to a shelf, taking the product off the shelf, and they taste it and they like it or they don't like it. So you have to do all that iteration before the product gets into the box on the shelf. And so we've sort of learned to do that process, to kind of build in that iteration process, but then to lock it in. I mean, then you have to lock it in at a place where, you've had enough input and enough kind of iterative process to where you feel like what you're putting into that package is the best product you could possibly put forth. And we do that iteration now, leading up to that, with our retail partners. We'll take product ideas into Safeway meetings, or into Target or into Costco, and we'll have the buyers taste and give feedback, and then we'll go back and we'll change it before we launch the product based on the feedback that our retail customers have given us.
It's just really intriguing, because the way he described his business was, this is really all about coordinating a lot of data points and logistics and solving for distance and perishability and personal preference, and that it's nothing beyond the capability of an app.
Right.
So maybe you could talk a little bit about how iteration and innovation has played a role at Farmigo.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's played, I was thinking about this, there are lots of little ways, even in the past month, if I think about even pricing or packaging. But when I think about big business model innovation for us, so we actually started out originally as a software company for farmers, for managing their CSAs. So farms have these boxes that they'll have basically a membership. And prior to our developing this software, most farmers were managing this in Excel spreadsheets, which is really, sometimes you have 1,000 members, people have different preferences, you're trying to manage it. So we created this software, and we actually still have the software. I think it's the top software. There are a couple competitors now. But a couple years into having this software, we were really hearing from the farmers that what they needed help with was marketing and logistics, and that the logistics of getting food to people and finding customers was just so hard when what you're really focusing on is getting your lettuce out of the ground and into boxes without wilting. That then marketing and logistics are really complicated. So this entire online farmers market model wasn't actually launched until about 2.5 years into the business existing, and is now, we have about 80 employees, 79 of whom work on the farmers market side, and one of whom works on the software, on the farm software side. So that was a massive shift for the company. Really, it's interesting for us because we are a two-sided marketplace. So we have customers, one is supply and one is demand, but we're really having to innovate both for the farmers and food makers and for the consumers, the end consumer. So really that was a major innovation on the side of working with the
Business
farmers.
model.
Yeah.
I spent a year on a national commission working on that problem, how to prevent the onset of chronic disease. It's called the Vitality Commission report. You might want to take a look at it. There's a lot of good ideas. But underlying, these issues are also huge farm subsidies. So I think until as a country we get at the Farm Bill, which is basically subsidizing the creation of low-cost, sweeteners, sugars,
High fructose corn syrup.
high fructose corn syrup. That's a structural issue. It's very interesting with Revolution Foods, and I'll let Chris and Keir talk a little bit more about this. But we exist in a very emotional world. Food is the most philosophically charged issue, and because of that, it seems to demand more evidence base. And one of the things I've been intrigued with at Rev Foods is that there's some correlation between, and this isn't rocket science, but a kid gets a good meal and they get better grades and they have less behavioral problems.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to do more evidence-based work around the systematic benefits of healthy foods. I'd say the third thing is, and you'll see this happening right now, but a lot of big food is getting set up and they're scared to death about being the next tobacco companies. And there was an article that ran in USA Today this week that quoted yours truly saying something like, why is Mars now putting on their package that you should only eat one of these a week? And I said it's a matter of survival. At the end of the day, the food companies that are on the wrong side of the health and sustainability crisis issues are they're in a declining business.
Yeah.